Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome into another edition of the USL show. Slim panel tonight, just me and Ryan, but we are excited to talk about all things USL, League One Championship, the whole shebang. Excited to talk about Lou City in particular. But first and foremost, Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm doing well today, John, and I hope that you're doing well, especially coming to us live from the city that's currently experiencing the highest of highs and the lowest of lows in terms of the sports world. You have the Mets winning game three today, praise be to Grimace, and then the Jets doing another foolish decision as they do every fall. So it's not the fall without the Jets doing something funny.
I think the fun of being a transplant here is that I don't really have to claim the Jets, but like if the Mets are doing well, I can be all aboard that bandwagon. So yeah, having lots of fun just seeing clips of like, oh cool, Grimace was on my train today. No, but yeah, fun times. Before we get started with the USL talk, I do have to shout out the patrons because they help make everything that we're doing happen. So John Hunt, Frank Anthony, Aaron J, Christopher Cohn, Harry Austin, John Fuller, Michael Fuchs, Joshua Duder, Noah Telford, Alberto Aguilar, Jeremy Churchman, Stephen Howard, Rihan Lakara, Tim Knox, NF Reg 30, MOS, Kunal Patel, Andrew Towsley, and Olive the Hedgehog. Thank you all so much for the support. Well, with that, I think kind of the big story of the week, really the thing that we've been waiting for to become official for a long time now, was Louisville City winning the Players' Shield. We'll get into it a little bit with the matches that got them there over the week. But Ryan, just kind of talk about why this is meaningful and kind of your take on Lou City as a whole this season.
Yeah, I mean, Louisville City, for the longest time that they've been in this league, they've been at the forefront of the Eastern Conference. They're that team that everyone can almost pencil in that they're going to be in the Eastern Conference final every year. It's always the phrase death taxes Louisville City in the Eastern Conference final. And what's been just so surprising within Louisville this year is that, like, historically they had never won the Player Shield up until this season. I think it was their first 4 years in the league. They were the second best team every season, but they ran into a team like unbeatable Rochester Rhinos or the New York Red Bulls, too, at the time in 2016 as well. But having gone through this entire season, Louisville has just looked like this absolute world beater of a team that, per my ELO ratings, this might even very well be Louisville's best team that they've ever put to the field. And it's incredible for a team that hasn't won the cup since 2018, that they've just gone through the competition without match for most of the season. And they're really going towards trying to bring the cup back to Lynn Family Stadium.
I'm glad you brought up the best Louisville team ever thing, because I was going to kind of take the conversation in the same direction of, not only is this the best team that Louisville has ever put out, might they be just the best team in the history of the USL proper? Like, I think there is an argument to be made for it. I was looking at the expected goals numbers earlier today, where weirdly 2019 Red Bulls 2, who finished sixth in the East, had the best XG margin in the history of the league. Phoenix is kind of up there, but it was the 2020 iteration where they couldn't go on and win a title because of the coronavirus. If Lou City, who now has the Players' Shield, which, if you ask me, is the best barometer of who was the best team in the season, but if they go on, finish off the year strong, and go win the championship, I don't want to say it's undeniable, but they certainly have a very strong case to be the best team ever.
Yeah, and just looking back through some of my previous historical ELO ratings, the best ever Louisville team, in my opinion, was that 2018 team. And they ended that season, including the playoffs, on a 12-12 rating. This current Louisville team is currently sitting at a 12-13 rating. So they've already, in the regular season, with time to spare, obviously there's been a different number of games played over the years compared from 2018 to 2024. But they're already surpassing what has been the best ever Louisville team. And like my current best ever team to ever play in USO was the 2022 San Antonio FC, who finished with a 1258 rating. If Louisville can march their way at least into the USL Cup final, they already are at least staking a claim that they are the best team to have ever played in USL for a best single season.
I was looking into that 2018 team. We were clearly both going kind of a similar process. That was the year where they had the three players kind of take over as that triumvirate weird interim manager thing, which, I mean, clearly didn't hurt the fact that that team ended up being unbelievably elite. But I think like what we saw in practice this last week, right, where they had to beat Miami at midweek, and it's Miami, but it is a midweek game. And then you go to Indy for the Louisville Indianapolis Proximity Association football contest match. That's a tough week, no matter how you slice it. And Miami in particular, yes, they're bad, but they know how to defend. They know how to sit 10 or 11 players behind the ball and really wear you down. And Louisville showed off one of the strengths that we don't talk about enough early on in that match, where they get a couple of corner kicks early on. They're a team that tends to like to aim towards the far post. There's a lot of numbers that show that's probably the more efficient way of going about it. And they almost train Miami to try to defend that. They get 2 or 3 early serves that go that way. Then all of a sudden you get one more opportunity. Shantosh takes this near side run, completely fools Miami. Suddenly you've got a lead. Suddenly the face of the game changes. It's those subtle moments, I think, where Louisville City does something tactically interesting, has an innovation that you might not expect, that sets them up constantly to maximize the talent that they have. In the Indy game, despite the fact that it ended as a 2-2 draw, like they outshot the 11 31-7. That this was kind of a rout that didn't play out like that on the score sheet, but you still end up with the late Jake Morris goal. You still lift the trophy at the end of the day because this team is deep. This team knows how to play the Danny Cruz system and just consistently gets results from it.
Yeah, I mean, 11 clean sheets on the season, 79 goals scored across the year, and they're still not done. If they have a big day that they could possibly have, if they want to enter the playoffs on the high, they have back-to-back games against San Antonio and Phoenix to close out the year. I would not put this Louisville team past them from getting very close to that 90-goal mark if they continue on with how they're playing. Like, they've scored over 2 or more goals in each of their last 3 games. They could get very close to 90 goals in the regular season, which is just absolutely unheard of for USL.
We're going to talk about the Tampa game a little bit later. I think there's a real potential, just given how the Rowdies have looked, given the difficult context they're playing in back home, frankly, that could be ugly. San Antonio, they defend well and keep it tight, but depending on where Phoenix is at, like the level of motivation for Rising is a question mark right now, independent of the fact that they could be eliminated in theory by that final day. So yeah, and Lou City, even if they're rolling out their backups, like that's probably the 3rd best team in the East if we're being serious. So yeah, could be an exciting end to the year for them. Real quick, I also want to touch on kind of the bubble race in the East. Obviously, as we're going live right now on the show, and for anyone listening later, it'll be Tuesday night right after Indy 11 have gone to Loudoun and got a 1-0 win. Kind of anticipation of when this game would come out. When that game would happen relative to the pod. I did the Loudoun focus on the USL Tactics show this week, so I will go ahead and hit that before we start discussing the match. This weekend to all but sew up a playoff spot, and the ability of their varied attacking line to make a difference in Connecticut was really the thing that swung the game. You're going to see those attackers atop the 3-4-3 and the high press here, and you'll note that Florian Velo on the right is going hard at the goalkeeper, while the striker, Zach Ryan, sits off a little bit deeper to clog the midfield. When Loudoun regains, Ryan is able to get a touch and quickly lace in teammate Riley Boudoir, the starting left winger, in behind. It's that connectivity, that interplay between the attackers that makes this team so fascinating. Here, Velo sets the terms on the right, gets a wing back involved, and you'll note Ryan making a very hard run at the near post. That gives Boudoir room to find a cutback, make a shot, and put pressure on the Hartford net. That's par for the course for Loudoun, but it goes deeper than the attacking impact. Here, it's a move driven by the wingbacks. One, Kwame Wu on the left, is crossing to Keegan Tingy on the other. Velo knows what's going on. He knows that his wide player is a little bit overcommitted in the final third, so he makes the effort to track back and shut down Michigalina, one of Hartford's premier attacking threats. Later in the game, Ryan Martin needed more offense to seal the deal. He introduced Abdulatif Abukora and Wesley Leggett to get the job done. You see Leggett getting the touch there, and he advances, continues to roam, and pushes into the box to free up room for Tingy to get a shot on his left foot. It's that sort of probing motion, that energy that makes the 19-year-old Abakora such a special talent for this Loudoun side. Leggett is a similar level of quality, frankly, but he brings that sort of in-behind speed, that motion that never lets a defense off the hook. Here, he and Abakora link up for the second goal in the game, one that seals the deal for Loudoun and gives them the victory they need. It's the ability of Ryan Martin to choose the player he needs in the specific context that makes Loudoun so good, and they have the talent to pull it off no matter the game and no matter the opponent. And contrary to what I was saying there, like with a real focus on this is a Loudoun team that can possess, this is a Loudoun team with a very deep attacking line that's so fluid and feels interconnected. I think the reason why Indy beat them tonight was kind of denying all of those opportunities. The 11 came out in a very aggressive 3-5-2 press. They didn't let Loudoun get those touches in the central areas that kind of make everything tick. Loudoun improved a bit when they brought on Zach Ryan to kind of connect play from the striker spot. He loves to kind of drop down as this withdrawn number 9, let teammates get involved. But by and large, it was almost this anti-Loudoun game where the 11 dictated the terms. They made it physical. They kind of made the tempo very choppy for a lot of this match. Yes, the winning goal was kind of an insane and lucky flick from James Musa off a corner, and it's probably not a replicable outcome for the 11. But Loudoun just didn't do enough to kind of impose themselves, and I think that's why they're a team that's sitting in 8th place now, could be overtaken at the weekend, rather than a team that has locked up a spot.
Yeah, and this has historically just been an always very tough matchup for Loudoun anyways. This result tonight for Indy 11 has made it 5 in a row unbeaten against Loudoun United. And if you look at Loudoun's remaining 3 games that they travel to Rhode Island on this Sunday and are taking on a Rhode Island team who's also trying to hunt for a home playoff game as well. But then to close the year with a huge game against Pittsburgh, who's currently on the outside of the playoff spots looking in. And then who knows what Charleston's motivation will be on the final day, having already locked up the second seed in the conference. This was a game I felt like Loudoun really needed to get a result in and really kind of stamp their claim on having 8th place kind of at least in better shape going into the weekend rather than leaving the door open for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at what's coming this weekend, there's a chance that they end up passed by North Carolina and Hartford comes within a point of them. That's not the position you want to be in, having that schedule that you just discussed for Loudoun, certainly. And certainly this is a team also that has some depth, but you worry that they're a little bit one note. And if a team like Pittsburgh that plays that kind of similar, or that rather physical pressing style like Indy, how is that matchup going to go? When you face a team like Charleston who can kind of take control against anybody, you're worried about going tete-a-tete with them. So, I mean, tough slate for Loudoun to end the year. On the Indy side, however, they're up to 4th place with the win. Tampa Bay has a game in hand, but I mean, the game in hand is Lou City. Like, that's the worst game in hand you could possibly have. This is an Indy team that I've been fairly down on for a couple of months now, kind of since that summer hot streak slowed down. But I thought returning to basics, right? Like the thing that, I don't know, Sean McCulley used to bring Indy up the table in the first place and improve them this season. That's what did the job against Loudoun. And it's the promising tactical outlook that you want to see if you're an 11 supporter.
And to look ahead for the weekend, we have basically a virtual play-in game to lock up the 3 seed as Indy 11 travels to Keyworth Stadium to play Detroit City, with the winner of that game very well kind of, I think, will basically confirm, or not officially, but in my opinion, they will be the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference this year. And even then, I think if you look ahead for Indy 11 to close out the year, you have Detroit, Birmingham, and Tampa Bay, all currently playoff teams in the Eastern Conference, that it provides a very good kind of runway into the playoffs to ensure that they're in the best momentum. And then Detroit with Indy 11, Miami, and San Antonio as well. You're looking at a Detroit team who should very well lock up a home playoff game this weekend.
I didn't even realize that Indy played really a slate of teams that is going to decide who gets home field advantage. So kudos to the schedulers for doing something right there.
One at least really surprising team I want to at least go into the Western Conference if we're going to talk about more of the
Yeah.
playoff picture over there is the Las Vegas Lights from the start of the year to where they are now. Jose Batista works his magic and wonders, and we could be talking about by the end of the season a Las Vegas Lights team who is the number 2 seed in the Western Conference, depending on how other results shake out. But it was the Lights who clinched a home playoff or a playoff spot, and it was Sacramento who also punched their ticket into the postseason as well.
Yeah, and I mean, Lights or Sacramento and Colorado Springs have a game in hand on them at the moment. But if you're Las Vegas, who perennially finishes in last place, the culture has really been degraded over the years. All of a sudden, you're seeing them build up that fan base. You're seeing the supporters slowly, certainly, but surely coming back into the mix. This team on the field is one of the most exciting, possessive offensive teams there is. And I think Dennis Sanchez's ability to keep finding new ways to attack with that roster has been really impressive all season. Some of the guys they've added on loan as well, whether Usman Jabong in the midfield, what they've got from Grayson Duty at fullback. Like, this is a team that didn't rest on their laurels, and it's the reason why they're up to second right now. They kept grinding, kept realizing we've got a long way to go to become a competitive side yet again. For me, they're the best story in the USL this season.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team who I believe for the first time in their history are qualifying for the postseason at 47 points. They've already surpassed their highest ever points total, which was in 2022 when they had 45 points. And mind you, that was a 45 points total that got you to finish ninth in the Western Conference that year, which is just hilarious considering that we're looking at a Phoenix Rising team who's currently the 8th team in the Western Conference, who's on 36 points and is pretty much going to be finishing below that 45-point mark. It just kind of shows how different that 2022 season was when you had San Antonio atop the table at 77. But yeah, I mean, well done to Las Vegas for kind of wrapping up a playoff spot here. They take on a Birmingham team away from home on Sunday, and then they host Oakland for their final regular season home game, and then play at North Carolina on the final day. That could very well be a game that both teams going into it are going to be playing for either a playoff spot in North Carolina's case or seeding in a home playoff game in Las Vegas's case.
And looping back on Las Vegas's matchup over the weekend where they drew against Orange County, Orange County has been a team where when Hardiman left, when they got Danny Stone in the mix, I couldn't have been less in on that stock, I guess. And the way that Danny Stone has kind of figured out that system, continues to get good results against teams like Las Vegas, has been so promising to see. I think that in terms of the midfield structure, in terms of the way that this team is attacking, they feel like they have a game plan. There were a lot of moments early in the year where Orange County was very individualistic. Like, they were hoping Bryce Jamison could get out on the counter. They relied on Kyle Scott to just do something in the midfield to earn their chances. It's more formulaic now. They've got patterns, they've got variety. It's probably not enough, if we're being honest, to make them a proper dark horse in the playoff hunt. But is it enough to get them into the postseason? I think so, if they keep playing the way that they're playing. And I mean, there was a real doubt that they would climb up to this point after kind of dropping down the table over the summer.
Yeah, I mean, they've reeled off 4 matches in a row unbeaten. It's their longest unbeaten streak since they began the year. 6 matches unbeaten as they close out the season with Colorado Springs, El Paso, New Mexico, and Hartford. Obviously not the easiest of slates that they could be given. They could have some reprieve here with New Mexico pretty much already having locked up the number 1 seed in the Western Conference right now. They could be playing a weaker than usual lineup for that penultimate weekend game. But yeah, I would think out of the 2 teams that are currently on 36 points at the end of the Western Conference playoff picture at the moment, Orange County is entering into the postseason on a lot better footing than what Phoenix is doing right now. And that's a Phoenix team who had a very brutal loss against Monterey Bay, who ended their William Henry Harrison goal drought going into that game, and Monterey Bay, who picked up a 2-1 win on the Friday night before the weekend and are quietly unbeaten in 3 of their last 4 and just sit 3 points outside of a playoff spot.
Yeah, and for Monterey, it was their first win since early August. Crazily enough, the first win for Jordan Stewart after about not nearly 2 months of being the manager there, which, I mean, hey, you win when you win. It's a good victory for them against that Phoenix team. You loved the defensive approach. Stewart kind of interestingly broke out a back five properly for the first time that we've seen all season, with Moridona on the right and Walmer Martinez on the left. They've struggled for goals, certainly. Like, you make reference to the fact that they had a goalless streak longer than presidential term. But I mean, Phoenix Rising at the same time is just as culpable in that match. Missing Emil Cuello, they clearly didn't have the flow they wanted offensively. I don't think they're using Charlie Dennis quite attacking minded enough in the midfield. There's just a lot going wrong there, and you can see it weighing on that locker room. Like, there's a look about Phoenix. They feel like they're playing heavy and they've got other considerations on their mind. And credit to Jordan Stewart for keeping Monterey kind of out of that chasm, keeping them motivated to go and get results and stay in the mix.
Yeah, and if you're just looking ahead for all of these remaining schedules, and like you had mentioned earlier, kudos to the person who set the schedules at the start of the year. I mean, I think of Tulsa, Monterey Bay, and Phoenix and Orange County. It's Phoenix, Tulsa, and Orange County. They all play New Mexico to end the season. So New Mexico could very well be determining who is possibly going to be their first round opponent in the first round of the playoffs. But yeah, I'm not sure what to make of Monterey Bay, who have to play Sacramento tomorrow night away, and then has Colorado Springs, and then a very massive game against Tulsa on the final day of getting into the postseason. If this is lining up for them to possibly nick the 8th spot in the West, or if it's going to very likely fall to whoever's going to be the least bad over these final 4 games.
What I do like about Monterey is they've got a local pasta restaurant that they're using as their sponsor. So they post the playoff odds that I put out, and they say it's hashtag Mission Impossible. I think it's tremendous content. So kudos to everything Monterey. We love them over here.
That's clever. That's really well
It
done.
is good stuff. Yeah. So I want to kind of move from what we're seeing in the championship right now to a future team. What once was USL Northwest Arkansas has revealed that they are going to be Ozark United FC. I'll pull up the logo in a second here, but they revealed the logo as well. It's a brand that got a lot of attention. It got a lot of positive feedback. How are you feeling when you've seen what they're going for, Ryan?
I love the branding that they're going to go with in terms of the name. Ozark United, I feel like just really fits well, and it really fits in with what the rest of kind of USL 1 clubs entering into the league next season are. You have AV Ulta, Portland Hearts of Pine. You get these really unique names of teams who are coming into the league and wanting to set themselves apart, that when you see a team that's basically like FC Naples or Texahoma FC, when you have branding such as this, and especially in the United States, when you have a branding that's just about a geographic region rather than a city, I think the name is something that's really fantastic. And I'm a fan of having Ozark United as the name. The logo, I think, is fine. To me, it struck me more as like a toothpaste logo in terms of how it looked. I think it's fine. I think it looks okay. Hey, but the real winner of this branding is definitely the name, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you. I was almost a little bit surprised to see as much positive feedback as I did with the crest itself. For me, it just feels a little bit busy and a little bit vague, not necessarily as like, oh, very specific to Arkansas and the Ozark region, but they absolutely knocked it out of the park with that name, because the whole intent of this club, right, is you're representing what Fayetteville, Bentonville, some of the cities in that area, kind of bringing them together into one collective team for a region that has been historically starved of professional sports. oftentimes United feels like a kind of a cheap moniker that you're just throwing out because it's a soccer word, but it makes sense for Ozark. And so that just wins them credit for me pretty immediately. I do tend to like that kind of green on green color scheme they're going for. I think Lexington has shown that it can look good in practical use, but definitely in terms of the busyness between the letter format, you're spelling out Ozark United, you've got the thing with Arkansas and the little diamond from the state flag. Like there's the saying that when you're about to go out, you need to look in the mirror and take one little bit of bling off. That's the way I'm looking at that crest right now.
Yeah, like in the middle of all of it, it looks busy. The FC and the kind of blank space between the Z is out there. And just like what was really striking to me is that it had the word arc in terms of the bottom part of the
Yeah.
Z. And that's going to be the only thing I'll be able to stare at with this logo every time I see it. It's like, oh, look, arc. And it's interesting. Like I think it would have worked a lot better if they just got rid of FC and the arc in it, and it just had O and Z, and then just Ozark United around it. So again, very solid branding. It'll fit in well with the rest of USL One coming into the league in the future. The crest just it's okay for me.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to pull it up here just to kind of show the folks what you are on about. Yeah, so look, it definitely looks good, but Andy in the comments makes the good point, as he usually does, that it's not really easily scalable for different applications. I don't know if they're planning to have some sort of secondary that kind of fits the bill more. There's a lot to work with in terms of the colors, in terms of kind of the iconography they're going with, but it's a solid if unspectacular crest for me.
Yeah, I mean the letter mark of just the O and the Z, I think would look great on a hat.
Sure, sure. I'm with you on that. Well, let's move from one expansion team to another because League One, which literally never stops announcing expansion sides, is formally adding a team in Corpus Christi, Texas, which is kind of another area that's been historically underrepresented in terms of professional clubs. They announced that they're going to have a $28 million modular stadium project, 5,000 capacity, as with many of the facilities in League One. Feels like a nice little addition geographically, but how are you feeling about Corpus Christi?
I think it's another really good addition for USO One, especially as the league is trying to kind of branch away from its more southeast kind of roots. You establish more teams kind of in the middle part of the country. So in 2026, you'll have Corpus Christi joining in with Texahoma, with Ozark. You have Omaha, Northern Colorado in the middle here as well. But what really jumps out to me is Corpus Christi, although it doesn't fill the Rio Grande Valley hole that's in our heart, we still have a representation now back in South Texas. And that state is so large that it could really handle all of these teams that can come into the state. So I am excited to have Corpus Christi be joining the league and having these stadiums of 5,000 capacity. It just fits for a lot of these teams. At 5,000, you're looking at what Spokane has at the moment, what Ford Madison is currently working with. So I'm excited to see how the project kind of unfolds from here.
Yeah, and you think about Corpus Christi as a market, like about 400,000 people in the metro, roughly a hundredth in terms of television market size and ranking relative to other cities. That's about what League One is going for. This is the sort of city that the league ought to be targeting as they continue to expand. It really does nicely complement what they've added because we've talked a million times about the Southeastern core, but you need to have the kind of bridge clubs that are filling out the West, adding in Texas. And you're dead on too about the South Texas point, right? Like that's been a strong area for the USL historically. So to get another team there right on the coast is a very positive move. And we've also got Kaler in here. I don't know if he's actually alive.
And we'd be remiss not to mention Corpus Christi FC of USL 2, as well as at least an existing USL club that's kind of been within the ecosystem as well as a way to try and at least kind of go from there. So I'll be very curious to see how the club intends or what their branding strategy is going to be, what the club name is, because as we've mentioned previously, a lot of the entering teams for 2025 has certainly, I guess, raised your game, if you will, in terms of their branding. Portland Hearts of Pine has definitely been my favorite and kind of set a really high bar.
Can y'all hear me? Just wondering.
We can.
Yes.
Cool. Y'all are doing great, by the way. I was listening until I could get to a place where I could hop on. For Corpus Christi, the biggest thing, I mean, just having another Texas team is awesome. Maybe you guys discussed this before I hopped on, but I feel like this was announced several years ago. I feel like I'm reliving something. Maybe the of League Two announced facility, but I thought that when this facility was initially announced, that League One was the planned destination. Am I completely off base on that?
I didn't do the digging, obviously, and I don't recall that, but there's certainly a possibility that whenever the League Two side, with similar ownership to this new initiative in League One, when they got going, there probably was discussion of hopefully eventually we're going to step up to the pro ranks. I feel like that is kind of the mold with a lot of these teams at the League Two level that are in a bigger city that have that ambition. So I'm sure you're correct in recalling that.
Yeah, Kayla, you are correct. It was I found an article back from 2020 October that the city was going to give 1.85 million incentive to a sports complex planned for the West Side, and in that article they mentioned Corpus Christi FC as a local USL2 team who had ambitions on going into professional ranks at some time, and even outright mention a 5,000 seat stadium. So it definitely has something that it's been in the works in the past. And also just from like looking at like on a map and then just looking through all the TV markets, Corpus Christi always seemed like that team that kind of just jumped out to you as a city that would just kind of fit within the mold of USL, and obviously within their own history of having minor league baseball in the area. It just seemed like it was a team that would work there.
I think another part to this that's very exciting is that we finally have a League One representation for the Copa Tejas, because North Texas was not around to be a part of the Copa Tejas because it started right as they were leaving, I'm pretty sure. Which, speaking of Copa Tejas, we do have that this weekend. And this is about to be so mean to El Paso and San Antonio, but this might be the most just mid Copa Tejas for the USL of all time. One of those teams, unfortunately, has to be the winner of the Copa Tejas this year.
If El Paso finishes last in the West but wins the Copa Tejas, that'll be completely hilarious, frankly. And I mean, quick shout out to El Paso. I'm going to get the number wrong, but I think they're in the middle of like a 5-6 game unbeaten streak or something near that. Like, they're still bad, but yeah, six games. There you go. But they've rounded into form and respectability, at least, because of some of these guys that Wilmer Cabrera brought in. So it's bad either way, certainly, but
they're not mathematically out. We've talked about it, and I talked about it last week. I think it was me and Ryan. If we're considering Sacramento to be a consideration to being the number one seed, we have to consider El Paso a possibility for the playoffs. They're the same points with the same games. It's certainly possible. Is it likely? No, but it is possible.
But I think the difference being Sacramento has to, and it's an academic question now because none of these things are happening, but like Sacramento has to overtake one team and just catch like one team in bad form. El Paso needs like 5 clubs in front of them to all just like basically fold for the end of the season, which you're like quintupling the odds of making the comeback there, which makes it that much harder. But hey, if they can pull it off, it'll be the best storyline ever. So come on, you locos.
And one thing that El Paso has at least going for them is they could very well control their own destiny. Their next two games are against San Antonio and Orange County. And if you're trying to prevent a club from getting farther in front of you in terms of points, the best way you can do that is just go out and beat them. Now, mind you, they still have Sacramento and Pittsburgh waiting in the wings after those two games. And I think we probably can venture a guess on how well that match will probably go against both teams. But it's still all within El Paso's hands to take away playoff spots from San Antonio or Orange County's chances because they play them.
I do have some final thoughts on Corpus Christi, but first, this is just kind of a question for y'all. Not is he going to be? That's not the question. But would, if you were the ownership, would you give Cabrera another year?
I think Wilmer Cabrera has a ceiling as a coach. Like if you hand him the reins and say, here's the 2-year contract, you're basically also saying we are just trying to get the 7 seed. And that's fine. Like El Paso needs stability right now. This is a club that has gone through a couple of managers. They've never landed on the post-Lowry guy. To me, it feels unambitious. And I don't mean that to be rude to Wilmer Cabrera, certainly. Like, this is a guy who deserves respect for a long tenure in American soccer, doing a very good job. But within the USL, he's a known quantity. He gives you what he gives you, and that's not a whole lot. El Paso was the best team in the West in Lowry's final season. They have the resources to get back there. They spent very willingly over this offseason and looked like a team that ought to compete. For me, they should go as big as they can. But I kind of understand the world where they say, let's circle the wagons. Let's earn the trust back from the fans by just playing competitive soccer and avoiding the controversy. So I say no, but I understand the logic if it is a yes.
Yeah, I think it's a really tough situation that El Paso finds himself in. Wilmer Cabrera, in all of his managerial jobs, doesn't have a win percentage above 45% there. But as you come down the stretch of the season, El Paso are unbeaten in 8 of their last 10 games, which is a run of form that, like they haven't seen since the start of the 2023 season when they reeled off all of those wins that they had in a row. So I think when you go into an offseason coaching search, especially after how brutal this season has been for El Paso, you should certainly look for any and all options at manager. But I could also echo John's point here and say, I understand if they want to just sign Cabrera on for another season just to see how the year goes. But that also needs to come with kind of the expectation that, okay, we're probably not going to be challenging for the top of the Western Conference again.
Back to Corpus Christi, just real fast.
Hire Wilmer.
If everybody joins the league as they're supposed to join the league, which is always a wonderful mind game to do within the USL, because no, they won't. But assuming we're going to be up to 19 teams in League One, or is that big enough to go into conferences, or is that still small enough that you could say, yeah, we can do a balanced schedule, everybody plays everybody, and kind of keep what they have going, which I really like. Everybody plays everybody home and away, and I think it's wonderful the way they have it now, but is it possibly getting too big to continue doing so?
Given the existence of the Jägermeister Cup, 19 teams is too big for the single table, which is unfortunate because I love that format, but there's not a world where they're going to have 36 regular season games, whatever the group stage would look like for Jaeger. Like, frankly, I think 16 is probably the number where they're going to say, okay, we're going to conference it, and you'll still get plenty of interleague play at that point, but that feels like the natural cutoff where 8 and 8 is a solid number.
I could honestly even see them wanting to split into at least further divisions if they're able to kind of structure things properly. Like if you're going to it's never perfect, and there's always going to be a team that is going to kind of be left out. But the fact that they were so willing this year for the Jägermeister to have 3 divisions shows that I think there is a willing from USL One's front office that they could split the league into 3 divisions, whether it's equal teams or if they're on 18 teams, they could do 3 divisions of 6. I think would be at least something to at least explore, especially if you're going to have the Western coast of Spokane, Eugene, Central Valley, Santa Barbara, AV, Alta. Those teams should frequently be playing each other more than making treks to Omaha or making treks to Texahoma and Corpus Christi.
Well, if you're looking at what League One was initially set out to be, which was to be the more affordable professional soccer, right? Which, granted, those buy-in costs have already skyrocketed from what they originally were. That's a different conversation. If you take in what it's supposed to be, which is more affordable soccer to bring professional soccer around, those 3 divisions, if they do what you're saying, Ryan, which would be smart, we will finally get the St. Louis Central Division. Talk about being an owner, how much quicker you would sign up for that, because hey, we don't have to travel that far. We're not having to go from Spokane to, Super League example, Spokane to Fort Lauderdale. We don't have to make that flight. We don't have to pay for all that stuff. Your travel costs just went way down. Your minimum wage is, lower. I think it makes it even more affordable to be a USL League One owner, which I think actually incentivizes teams to be in League One. Because right now, with the national balanced schedule, financially, really, what's championship? Not as much as you would think. I think if like that, I think more teams would join League One.
And USL One has done a really decent job in, I guess, filling in the gaps, if you will, around the country of just not having these teams be placed out on an island. Like Spokane is out in the Northwest on like its own little bubble. It's the Seattle Mariners problem, if you will. Oh, you now give 2 more teams joining Central Valley in California as well. If you establish teams in Arkansas, 2 teams in Texas, it really helps bridge the gap kind of moving across the country. That really the only region of the country that it feels like doesn't have enough USL One teams within it would be the Midwest kind of surrounding, where Madison is. Like certainly Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio could support a USL One team. And then the Northeast, just beyond Westchester and Portland, there could definitely be another team kind of within the area. But I also understand from USL's perspective that they have Rhode Island and Hartford to kind of fill in the gap from their area. And just given everything that we're seeing within a certain other, always a joy of a league to just watch from afar, the Maryland Bobcats could very well be entering the fray here of another possible USL One entry.
I'm glad you brought up the Maryland thing real quick. Yeah, just to kind of context set for anyone who's maybe not in the loop with whatever NISA calamity is happening in a given week. So Maryland, one of the best run teams in the league, probably the best, on their way to the playoffs because they're good at soccer. And then NISA comes in and just says they're disqualified. They claim compliance issues. They're citing vague U.S. soccer things that no one really understands and probably are fake. The Bobcats have handled the situation as gracefully as you could hope for in that situation. There's talk about NISA kind of being corrupt and owned by certain teams. That's neither here nor there for the point of our discussion. But Maryland Bobcats themselves, who regularly get attendance in above the 1,000 mark, they're about an hour away by car if you're going from their stadium to Segra Field, Loudon. So it's far enough away that the territorial rights, it matters, but they wouldn't be going for the championship anyway. There feels like if that ownership had the money to join the USL, there feels like there's momentum on the ground to get them involved. And you'd love to see a kind of reclamation project to save a team that has shown they're up to the standard in their NISA years.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Pennington, possibly, had reported that he was kind of hearing some boots on the ground stuff that the USL was willing to waive territorial rights, which you would think between Championship League One shouldn't matter, but territorial rights kind of are what they are. The precedent in Chattanooga exists. Granted, Chattanooga is a completely different can of worms. If that ends up being the case where, the Bobcats can join in, no territorial rights issues, I mean, I think that would be a wonderful thing because how long have we talked about Baltimore getting a professional club? I mean, it's been kind of talked about with the Cristos for a long time. When are they going to finally move up? And for the Bobcats to possibly beat them to the punch, that would kind of suck. But if they're willing to waive those rights anyway, it seems like maybe the Cristos already had their chance. So, yeah.
I mean, to be fair, when the Willington Hammerheads were going through their final season, it was always constantly being linked rumors that they would be moving the franchise rights to Baltimore. So it's been a link for USL since pretty much as long as I've been following the league as well. But if you're going to look at basically kind of teams within a USL 1 perspective, it fits a very perfect gap between Richmond and Westchester, or within the league, that it would very much structure easy away days for both of those teams. I guess the only concern you would have in it is that you also have another third division league right now that would be circling the waters within MLS Next Pro that could very well be also tempting for the Maryland Bobcats, especially if you have nearby two teams such as Union 2, whatever DC is going to end up doing with their situation as well, that could also very well be another, I guess, viable spot for the Maryland Bobcats to land from their own perspective.
I do just want to say Baltimore, calling them Baltimore is stolen valor. They're far enough away that I think that's cheating.
This is where I have to admit I know nothing about geography within Maryland. So, into my southern brain, all of Maryland is Baltimore, just to be honest.
Maryland is very weird and snaky and thin, so I kind of see where you're coming from on that one.
Also, just in case anybody is wondering, I am completely hands-free, so I'm not like distracted driving, I promise. It's just like talking on the phone. I'm fine. It's okay.
Real quick, Kaylor, since we've got you, how you feeling about that Sunday game for the Legion?
I kind of put it out there. Ezra Armstrong's just kind of that guy. I'm gonna be honest.
Yes.
Like he's so good. Obviously, I'm a Legion fan. I want to win. Kind of getting beat by Ezra Armstrong, I don't know, especially when you consider the fact that guys like Samuel Kavita, AJ Patterson not in the lineup. It defensively, you're always going to be a little bit weaker than you would think. I think that the team showed a lot of fight, and the fact they got 2 goals, yes, in a losing effort, still 2 goals, I left hopeful, especially since, a goalkeeper like Jake McGuire has historically had Legion's number. He had like 2 penalty saves, and I think 22 saves without conceding a single goal against Legion between Miami FC and his Miami FC stint and maybe the last one. Like, he has completely owned Legion. Getting, 2 goals of that, it is what it is. I think that when you're looking at the playoff race, home playoffs has been out of the picture for a long time now, despite what the numbers may say. We're still in the playoff spot, and they showed fight. So it's a result I can live with.
You mentioned Armstrong. I thought Rafa Mensingen in that second half was just as good at the right wing back spot.
For sure.
He's a player that doesn't get enough love. Like, he's incredible. I think what was promising even in the loss for the Legion was like Tommy was experimenting a bit with that lineup. And some of it surely was availability, but like putting Dawson at left back, getting Matthias into that second striker role. That's what you want to see the Legion doing right now. Like, given that the playoffs are all but sewn up, a loss is a loss, but these are ideas, these are reps players are getting together that are going to matter when push comes to shove.
in terms of Dawson at left back, that was something that happened in preseason, and I was really excited by it. I thought that could have been the answer going forward. I was also a massive Moses Mensah truther, and to an extent, I still am. But I think that having Dawson at that left back and figuring out a different left midfield option and letting Mateus and Pino play off each other, I think that could be the rest of this season on how you're going to get points, because that's what you saw work well against Pittsburgh when those two linked up and got the draw, was those two players, Mateus and Pino, linking up anyway. I think anytime you can get that kind of, false nine, out and out nine, or, shadow striker nine relationship, I think it's going to be good, especially for a team that has been really missing a central connecting presence for really 2-3 years at this point.
No, absolutely. Ryan, you got any Legion thoughts?
Las Vegas is entering the game, I think 9 matches unbeaten, and one of the hotter teams within the league right now. I think it's going to be a very tough contest for the Legion this weekend.
I won't lie, I'm just excited to see Las Vegas in person. I'm very excited to see that team in person because they are so good.
I would kill to see JC Nagando live personally. Like, that guy lights up the screen every time he touches the ball. So yeah, you're in for a treat with that Las Vegas team.
Pun intended.
Yeah. Okay, unless you guys have any other stray USL thoughts you want to throw out there, I think we are good to move on to some picks.
I didn't get to say my Ozark thoughts.
Please.
I'm fine with two-tone, but not every team can be two-tone green. I'm sick of it.
I think that's good. Yeah. Given that Lexington is moving up, there was very much a hole in the two-tone green category. They're filling a hole, basically.
But isn't it's not Alta. Is it Alta? Alta Valley?
Yeah, AV Alta,
Yeah.
You're right. But they've also got like Sand Gray or something with like dumb local relevance.
I mean, listen, just say that your like crest is like me and has receding hairline. It's fine. It's okay to admit it.
If there are any graphic designers out there on just the USL Twitter sphere or anything, if you could just remake all the USL logos in terms of just two-tone color schemes, that would be very hilarious.
And frankly, I'm throwing stones from glass houses when my Twitter avatar is just the USL color code with the word USL Tactics on it. So like, I don't have any room to criticize anybody.
The issue is that you weren't paid to create something like that.
That's true. Well, I only used one tone. That's my real issue.
Monotone USL Tactics.
Yeah. Okay, let's get rolling with some picks here. We've got a rivalry game to start this off. New Mexico and Phoenix. Two teams that couldn't be in more different places, frankly. But we will start off with you, Ryan.
Yeah, I've locked New Mexico this week. I think the way they've kind of gone about the previous 6 games has just been reminiscent almost of New Mexico of 2022, where they've confirmed their playoff spot, but they are ending the second half of their season kind of more on more of an average into the year. I mean, out of their previous 6 games, they have 3 wins and 3 defeats in that time. Admittedly, some of these games have come against very difficult opposition. You have Sacramento and Detroit in that time, but you want New Mexico going into the postseason kind of riding the high. And if they can do that and get it jump started against a Phoenix team who has 4 losses in their last 5 games, I think that's something they will take advantage of. And especially if they can play their rivals not only out of a playoff spot, but out of a playoff spot that they would likely be playing their opponents in. I think that's what New Mexico does this weekend. So I'm picking them in a lock.
Yeah, Gaylor.
Yeah, I mean, to just take everything that Ryan said, just to say the same thing, New Mexico wins, and I think convincingly.
Yeah, and real quick to address a question from Michael in the chat, Ozark / Northwest Arkansas, is aiming for championship. So good for them. Pick wise, this was a 1-0 game in March. In a game for Phoenix that Panos Armenakis and Erickson Gallardo started before they both got sold. They're a worse attacking team now, frankly. New Mexico has found better defensive chemistry. New Mexico is also just like a juggernaut, and they've proven that at this point. They're looking to come back from the big loss against Sacramento. Everything about this screams New Mexico, so going with the obvious one. Next up, Louisville City taking on Tampa Bay, defending the freshly won Player Shield against a Rowdies team that has been up and down and mostly down lately. So kick it off with you, Ryan.
Yeah, and Tampa Bay is obviously going through a lot of other things off the field, kind of going into this game. We're all thinking about the Tampa area and the rest of Florida with Hurricane Milton. With that being said, the Rowdies have entered this game with 4 defeats in their last 5, and Louisville, fresh off of their shield clinching results, I find it difficult for Louisville to not win this game at home on Saturday. I think it'll be both teams to score, as you've seen in the previous 15 matchups of this series. 10 of those games, it's all both teams find the back of the net, but Louisville, both teams to score.
I'm interested to see if Louisville takes their foot off the gas, because they literally have nothing to lose. I would be highly interested to see if there's any academy players that get some minutes, if there's heavy rotation. And, for Tampa Bay, I wonder if there's that extra motivation of that they're playing for something even bigger. I'm going to take Tampa Bay because I'm frankly going to believe in sports here to do something magical with what's going on in the Tampa Bay St. Pete area. Plus, couple that with, I think Louisville might be playing some youth in this match because there's nothing to lose. So I think I want to go Tampa Bay.
Whenever my Substack thing goes out tomorrow, I've got some words on Tampa Bay, but I think the disappearance of Cal Jennings has been kind of fascinating to see. Not in the lineup against Rhode Island, not in the lineup 3 games ago, I want to say. When he did get a start, he was used as the right mid in like a terrible 4-4-2. I think Robbie Nielsen is messing with the formula a little bit too much at this point. This is a team that's not quite comfortable in their defensive structure. They don't have good attacking ideas that they can execute consistently. And they're coming up against a Louisville team that, yes, doesn't have the motivation on paper, but I don't think Danny Cruz is constitutionally able to like half-ass a game. So I locked Louisville just because that's kind of my go-to in these picks. We will then move from east over to west with kind of an intriguing matchup with Memphis and Sacramento, 2 teams neck and neck in the table. 9-1 hosting this one. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. I'll be curious how Sacramento kind of approaches this game on the weekend, knowing that they have the midweek game as well, and Memphis has the full week to really prepare. I think Sacramento, knowing that they still need some work to do and want to put the pressure on Las Vegas on Sunday, that Sacramento wants to basically wrap up the number 2 seed in the Western Conference ahead of Las Vegas. So I think they go into this match motivated to go in and get a win. That's not to take anything away from a Memphis team who has just 1 win in their last 5 games, who are also playing to try and get a home field playoff game as well, just currently 2 points behind Colorado Springs. I just think the top 4 teams in the Western Conference right now are the best 4 teams in the Western Conference, and I am backing Sacramento to win.
Yep. Gaylor?
Memphis is the only team, I think, in the USL that I fully back to score 3 goals every match. They may give up 4, but I trust them to score 3-4 every single match. I have a feeling that this is going to be an absolute shootout where Sacramento is going to push to win, to lock up at second. And I think that Memphis is going to give it all. I'm predicting an 8-goal thriller, personally. But I think it's going to go the way of the Republic of Sacramento.
I'm glad you're taking the shootout angle because I feel exactly the same way. Given the way that Memphis presses so aggressively, but not that effectively, and just that Sacramento kind of has lost the defensive structure a little bit recently, and it's up and down. Like they were fantastic against New Mexico and then struggled against San Antonio. You're playing roulette every time. Whichever team avoids mistakes is going to get the win here. I think Sacramento is more likely to do so. I also think this is the kind of game that Kieran Phillips is built for. So going Republic. Let's drop on down to League One yet again. A really good top of the table, well, top-ish of the table matchup between the Charlotte Independents and our friends, the Northern Colorado Hailstorm. Ryan.
If we're going to talk about games that have been a shootout historically, 7 of the last 8 meetings between Northern Colorado and Charlotte Independence has been both teams to score, which is just exciting. I mean, if you're looking at through all of that, all of those games were over 2.5 goals, and a further 5 of that 7 were over 3.5 goals. Like, if you're gonna have like 2 really exciting teams face off, like this is the quintessential USL 1 matchup for that. I think this game's going to end up in a draw. Charlotte's not been in the best of form coming into this game with 5 matches unbeaten. However, I feel like just knowing that this game is always prone to have a lot of goals, the points will be shared.
Yep. Caleb.
Yeah, part of me wants to keep riding the Northern Colorado just hot hand, and a little bit of the Independence kind of sliding a bit. It feels really easy to say Northern Colorado, but also there's a weird League One side of me that says that means Charlotte is definitely going to win. I'm going to take Northern Colorado very hesitantly.
I am going NOCO as well. And I think it's because I'm trusting the defensive structure a lot. I think that the Independents are at their best when they can have some offensive flow, kind of drag opponents out and find that room for Juan Obregon in behind. Northern Colorado isn't going to let that happen. They've also got the speed to punish Charlotte over the top. Wouldn't be surprised to see them shift Rendon and Ariel Heel around to try and leverage like Clay Dimmick and some of the other players at the back that don't have that level of foot speed. There feels like there's enough in the air in favor of the Hailstorm that they're my pick in this one. And then, because I'm wearing the kit, we've got one more pick, and it will be Brooklyn FC, who this Friday are hosting DC Power. Ryan.
Yeah, I've picked Brooklyn FC to win this one. The club had an unfortunate 1-0 defeat to Fort Lauderdale last time out, but I still have a lot of faith in this Brooklyn project that I feel like they're going to be the better side over a DC Power team who's still searching for their first victory, has only scored 3 goals on the season. So I'm taking Brooklyn FC, and I think Brooklyn FC will win to 0.
Yeah, this is my lock. I'm taking Brooklyn, man. They are just such a good team. Fort Lauderdale, that match, I don't think we talked about it earlier, but that match really, Fort Lauderdale showed me something defensively they hadn't really shown me all year, and I was very impressed by that. But DC's just lack of press and lack of we are going to force your hand, I think is going to lend itself well to Brooklyn because Brooklyn does not rely on teams overpressing to beat lines. They can just work through you in that midfield. And I think DC is going to kind of let it happen. I think they're going to win by multiple. I am locking Brooklyn FC.
I think the other factor with that Fort Lauderdale game was that was a torrential rainstorm. Like they were playing in the worst conditions you can imagine. And that kind of played into Fort Lauderdale's style where they visibly just wanted to be direct early on and find Shania Gordon on that left wing. DC very notably does not have that offensive presence on the left wing. Like they play this kind of wonky 3-5-2 when they get into possession that doesn't shift up that side very effectively. So say that's the chink in the armor for Brooklyn. DC can't attack it. Meanwhile, the way that you get Mackenzie George and Izzy Cox engaged on the wings for Brooklyn, they feel like they have the answers to really pick DC apart. So Hopefully I'm right, but easy win for Brooklyn is the pick there. And that is it for picks. I am curious if either of you have any more USL thoughts? Question mark.
I'm good.
If not, then we can wrap it up with just some normal, random final thoughts. So, Ryan, start with you on anything you want to talk about.
Yeah, again, thinking of everyone down in Florida for Hurricane Milton, definitely stay safe and be prepared for everything here. It's been tough over the past couple weeks with Helene and now this hurricane coming in as well. So just thinking of everyone down in Florida.
Yep, Gaylor?
Just kind of echoing the same thing. Please stay safe. Do what you can. Whatever you can do. Just praying for them. Today, I really felt like a teacher. I watched a JV football team lose 50-0, and I stayed for the full thing. And if that doesn't just show where I am in life, here I am.
Are you involved with the football team at all or not?
The band had to play at the game.
Oh, sure. That would do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst loss I've seen at this school. We lost like 70-0 last year. They literally put in their backup JV team against our varsity, and they were still scoring. And we're like, y'all, this is not ideal.
Love to hear it. Yeah, I mean, again, just kind of echoing the sentiment, particularly to our friends in Tampa Bay. Obviously, all of us kind of have the mutuals down there. Couldn't be a better group of people. Hope you all stay safe. I tweeted in on a separate, completely irreverent thought. I tweeted it out today, but it was the release of Wendy's collaboration with SpongeBob to do a Krabby Patty and a pineapple themed Frosty. So I went and got myself a Frosty midday. Let me tell you, that thing hit the spot, man. It's the fakest pineapple you've ever had in your life. It was a real win for me.
How was the patty itself, though?
I did not try that yet. I'm gonna go. I was gonna dip my toe in with like a nice little like ice cream snack today. Yeah, I'm gonna go back and try the Krabby Patty. Apparently, it's just a normal Wendy's burger with a sauce, so like less incentive to go for that. But I now that I've kind of dipped the toe in, I got to go all the way.
So I used to. This is just a slightly tangential. I used to hate ice cream. Absolutely hate ice cream.
Wow.
I used to not be a big sweets guy. Like, I don't eat much candy. I don't do a lot of sweets, and ice cream was the worst. There is a local, it's a local Mexican ice cream shop where they make everything in house, and all they sell is citrus ice cream. So they have a mango ice cream, and you get little chunks of mango within the ice cream. I go 3 times a week. It's crazy.
That sounds so good. Love to see it. Well, I think that is all we have got for y'all today. Thank you very much for anyone who joined and chatted in the live stream. Encourage you to do that if you're listening on the podcast app, but we appreciate any and all support. And with that, you didn't hear him today, but you will hear him now, and we will send you out with Alan.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show. The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.